Ever since taking my first steps in Lordran, my expectations of what a current day RPG should be have never been the same. While most current gen titles focus on ease of access and profitability in mind, the Souls series takes a gamble with every release, knowing that a large majority of the gaming population will never complete their game because it is too hard compared to what they are used to. When Sekiro was released, reviewers pleaded for an easy mode to be added to the game so that they could complete it because they did not want to spend the time to learn the mechanics. And what did FromSoft do? They stood their ground and did not bend the knee to these privileged writers, as they knew that these are not the people they made the game for. If these game journalists could not take the time to simply learn the mechanics of their game, their review was not worth the time to read. These types of players have had their hands held for far too long and have been spoiled by ease of access, and stand as an example of why the Dark Souls series has modernized a lost trait of video games that was difficulty, respect, and an expectation for the player to learn and to play the game by themselves. Video games used to have higher expectations, insisting that you solve the puzzle and unlock the door, without an NPC or minimap telling you exactly how to do it, giving you the tools to discover the world for yourself, to feel rewarded upon unlocking an item or upgrade. While today, most RPGs tell you what, where, and when to do it, the Souls games expect the player to unlock the mysteries of the world for themselves and discover the true potential without giving them the blueprint to do so. I started the Souls series at a time, in my opinion, where real RPGs were on the ropes. Battle Royales were a rising fad that sought to kill off classic single-player experiences as we know them. With the rising popularity in the Battle Royale genre came the opportunity for many game publishers to get in on the action and get a piece of the pie. For years now, there have been many articles published claiming why the single-player RPG genre could soon be a thing of the past. But I am here today to tell you whether or not you are a fan of the series, you need to be thanking FromSoft and Dark Souls for saving your favorite genre. Modern day video games insist on catering to player accessibility, and this makes sense and is not really a bad thing in moderation. Many hardcore gamers complain that games have become too easy and accessible to newbie players to the point where they feel out of place and mistreated for the sake of appealing to a higher population. Most modern RPGs such as The Witcher include hand-holding mechanics such as mini-maps with markers, lit-up footpaths, and more that make the player get to their objective without having to do any real digging if they don't want to. Now, don't get me wrong, The Witcher 3 does this in a pretty good way by letting the player explore for themselves while at the same time giving them the means to find their destination pretty easily. The Witcher 3 also has an option for turning off things like footpaths, but this is a rare feature in a modern RPG. The Witcher 3 is one of the best games of all time, if not the entire decade, but it still has its flaws, and one of them is giving the player too much help. So much so that much of the game can be skipped over because the player knew exactly where to go to finish the main story. Dark Souls is a brutal game filled with punishing and horrifying nightmare fuel monsters whose only goal is to make you suffer and send you running back to your Fortnites and Call of Duties. Dark Souls does not hold the player's hand in any way. I fell victim to the exact spoiled gamer mentality that I am talking about the first time I played Dark Souls. No minimap, no footpath, no objective markers on my HUD. How do I know what to do? I gave up very quickly on Dark Souls, and it wasn't until I played Dark Souls 3 that I was inspired to finally give it a real shot. Admittedly, my first run through with Dark Souls 3 was not a good experience. I could not beat the first boss, and so once again I gave up very quickly. But it was when I tried the first installment of the series that I fell in love and became obsessed. I went on to play every single game in the series as well as their respective DLCs. The only Soulsborne game I have not completed is Demon's Souls, the grandfather of all Dark Souls games. But with the upcoming release of the PS5 and the remake on the horizon, I and many others will get to experience what helped make Dark Souls the game it is today. The atmosphere, the sheer feeling of loneliness and despair Dark Souls brings the player is not only haunting, but also beautiful at the same time. From the visual design to the intricate detail that went into crafting a story behind every single item in the game for the player to find for themselves, Dark Souls is a series that every RPG publisher should strive to be like. Now, I'm not saying that every RPG should be as difficult as the Dark Souls series, but I do believe that FromSoft is a publisher that has set the bar and the standard of respect and appreciation that every player deserves. Dark Souls does not hold your hand. It wants you to follow your own path, beat the game in the order you wish, killing each boss in a different order in each playthrough with new skills and items, choosing a new starting class, customizing your player's appearance, wearing full heavy armor, or nothing at all. The lore is presented to you in a manner that takes some digging, but not like in games such as Fallout 76, where computer terminals are your only connection to the lore of the game, but through item descriptions detailing the history of the world, giving the player a tangible representation of what that item meant, not just as a piece of equipment, but as a piece of the world. World building, atmosphere, and player respect, these are all staples of the Souls series that are here to stay. The history of the world alone is enough for novels to be written and movies to be filmed. Through every corridor, something new lies to be discovered. Every single item and enemy in the game has a story behind them for the player to discover, but with no mini-map or objective markers to guide them. The player must do it on their own. Gamers should look towards the Souls series as a beacon of light in a sea of microtransaction-ridden games and battle royales that aim solely to make money off of the player rather than give them a feeling of satisfaction and accomplishment. The feeling of beating a difficult boss whose mechanics you had to spend hours and even days to perfect is something truly magical that makes the Souls games special. A sense of accomplishment and excitement as you finally beat a boss you were stuck on is far more satisfying than watching a pre-rendered cutscene and then performing a quick time event before defeating your enemy. Dark Souls rewards the player's bravery to explore the world by presenting them with powerful items and upgrades for their efforts, something that most current gen games simply hand the player at a certain point in the game. The Dark Souls series has inspired a return to what made games good, with examples like Neo, The Surge, Star Wars Fallen Order, and Hollow Knight. These games, although some of them do include some handholding, expect more from the player, unlike most modern RPGs that insist on helping the player through every inch of the game. These games are made for a dying breed of gamers that crave more than a sandbox of overpowered items, boring cutscenes, and lifeless plots. FromSoft expects and appreciates you as a player, and in return, asks only that you respect them by discovering the secrets of their world on your own. Dark Souls teaches us that when you fall off that wagon, get right back up on that horse and keep going until you make it to your destination. Everything in life worth having is not easy to achieve. It takes time. You will fall. You will fail. You will want to quit, but hard work always pays off. The Soulsborne series will forever, to me, be the best representation of how modern video games can be entrusted with giving the player the freedom to choose their own path, fight their own battles, and achieve victory without having their hand held all the way through. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think of modern games. Do you think that Dark Souls is a good game and a good representation of how RPGs should be? Or am I completely off? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.